What's up, everybody? Megan here, helping you live your purpose and passion through a conscious lifestyle. And today I wanted to talk about how to dissolve the ego. These are tips from a book by David Hawkins, if you haven't heard of him. This is the book that I'm talking about, Dissolving the Ego, Realizing the Self. This is one of the most important books I think I've ever read. And I wanted to share some of that with you and help give you some tips that you can use to help not be so caught up in your mind, help you be more present throughout the day, and ultimately, hopefully help you manifest the things that you want and desire into your life. So, the first thing that we need to discuss is, what is the ego? Well, the ego is the unconscious thought patterns in your mind. It's the small self that's talking to you, telling you what it thinks is right and wrong. It's not necessarily right when it just thinks it's right. It would be, or David Hawkins would talk and describe it as the small self, or the illusion, or the one that needs to control every little aspect of your life. And if it is seen by the awareness, then it doesn't know where to go. It has multiple faces, multiple emotions that will come up. It wants to be seen, and that's what you have to understand about the ego. The ego is the man-made identity. We identify with things like anger, hatred, negativity, excitement. And when we don't get those things, the ego doesn't know what to do because the ego survives on those things. Now, how we can kill our ego is to be present, because the ego can't live in the present moment. It can only live in thoughts of the past, regret, anger that someone did something to you 10 years ago. That's the ego living in the past. Or the ego will propel itself to live in the future for hopefully to gain fulfillment from things in the future. Things like excitement. And the reason why we are okay with living in our ego is because we don't want to feel bored. We don't want to just be okay with being and not have something to constantly have things constantly going on in our mind. Now, I want to read a quote from David Hawkins' book that I feel like describes the ego perfectly, which is, the ego is imaginary doer behind thoughts and actions. Its presence is firmly believed to be necessary and essential for survival. The reason it is the ego's primary quality is perception, and as such, it is limited by the paradigm of supposed casualties. So what does that mean? It means that the only reason that the ego is surviving is because you're living in the past and the future. So getting on to the tips that will help you dissolve the ego and be less concerned about what's going on now, which will also help you manifest faster and easier because you're not attached to your ego, and your ego is the things that manifest. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to let go of the guilt that you have an ego. Everybody has an ego, and it's not going to go away. It's going to come back. You have to continually do the work. So the next step is to let go of identification with the ego as the me, or the I, or the myself, because you're not the me, the I, or myself. You are the awareness behind the person that believes that they are the I, the me, the myself. You need to inherit the ego as an it. It is an ego. It is not you. You have thoughts, but you're not thoughts. The last tip is the ego is weakened by acceptance and familiarity and compassion. When you accept the thoughts that arise without judgment, you are awareness. If you are judging every single thought that comes into your mind, you are letting awareness come in, or you're letting your ego come in through the back door. You're basically fighting with your ego. The ego is fighting with the ego. Does that make sense? And if you're not your thoughts, then you're awareness. But if you're a thought, if you're the thing that's judging the thought, then you're more ego. So accept the thoughts that arise and show it some compassion. Don't be judging it. The ego will be strengthened by self-criticism, condemnation, fear, and shame. All of the lower emotions on the scale that Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about in Letting Go, which is also another very good book that you should read. If you're able to notice yourself as awareness, the ego will die. And the way that you can become awareness throughout the day more and more is if you take every time that thought arises, you take it into your body and settle in your body instead of settling in your thoughts. You then become permanent and sit in presence and awareness throughout the day more and more and more. Okay, I hope that this video helped you guys learn a little bit more about the ego and what you can do to dissolve it. Please subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. Love you guys. Peace. One love. Bye.